Well, good morning, conservatives for McClendon Chisholm. It is a beautiful Thursday morning. Now that the rain is gone, the sun has really come out, and it is great to be with you today. And what fun we're going to have, because we're going to basically try to figure out the difference in how leftists define morality and how conservatives define morality, because it's obviously a very different standard that they use than we do, and so we're oftentimes we're at a loss. And it's interesting. David Day contacted me yesterday and asked the question via email: how can people be so petty? And I have no answer for him except that they have no compass. There is nothing driving them, and certainly not the truth. Which really kind of brings me to the first point of this show, and what it is that I'm doing, and what we're doing today, which is really to identify what is morality when it comes to the issue of our points of view, when it comes to political discourse. Is it okay to differ, and do we have to degrade one another into name calling? But more importantly, what's happening in our city is it's not name calling. It's not just name calling. It is just baseless information that is being presented out there, slander, bearing false witness against people. It is indefensible. I'm going to tell you my definition of morality, and that is being a truth teller. That is not hiding the truth in a half truth. That is not being. It means that you're not out there and actively lying. And I think it's important for us to understand, well, what is a lie? How do we define a lie? And who better? Oh. Well, there you have it. That is the definition of a lie. From where? We remember this from the knife-wielding man video. We saw Father Michael O'Donegan share with us the definition of a lie. And what is that definition? It is from the King James Version of the Bible, but of course it's really not from the King James Version of the Bible. He was lying. He brought that in so that he could seem as though he were something that he's not. He's a charlatan who, based upon his actions, and this is just one of them, he loves for people to believe that he is a very pious man. This comes out of the King James Version of the Bible. This comes out of Webster's version of the dictionary, not King James Version of the Bible. And of course, we know that Michael O'Donegan was the founder and the creator of the Neighbors for McClendon Chisholm PAC, along with Steve Hatfield, and of course his protege. That would of course be the former mayor, Gary Moody. And Gary Moody was not just a supporter, not just one of those who was helping with this. He was also the Political Action Committee's treasurer. And it's interesting because, well, we've now heard from former Mayor Gary Moody on social media. He just couldn't keep himself out of it. And I think it's indicative of the difference in how conservatives and leftists like Mayor Moody define morality. Here's what he writes. City Financials. After reading the campaign financial reports, William Sedahl III, Trudy Wassner, and Lorna Morgan Kippett have several donors across the area, including a few from their families and friends. What he means by that is they've got a lot of out-of-state donors. They've got a lot of donors who are not in the city. They're outside of the city. And they're good friends with one another. And and they all have one thing in common, but I'm not going to spoil someone's thunder, because I'm going to be reading from a blog post today that kind of opens that up clearly. He says they are fully funded and in the positive. Please consider placing your support behind these fiscally conservative candidates. He goes on. This leads to the following questions. How can someone running for city council manage a budget if they cannot afford to buy their own signs? How can you run for office and have zero contributions from citizens? Yet you claim to have knowledge of what the citizens want and need. If no one is donating to your campaign, it means they don't like your message and are not willing to invest in you. Well, of course, we all know by now, or you should know, that not only was Gary Moody the Political Action Committee's treasurer, but he was also a key donor to our current mayor, Keith Short. And of course, Keith Short's campaign political contributions show this. Now, of course, we have his wife, who also shows up on Keith Short's his political contribution list because they threw a campaign event for them. Now, why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because a political action committee and a candidate cannot be working in concert with one another. Well, we've proven that this has happened. But the biggest issue is that this campaign, the Short campaign, the Bloom campaign, this political action committee run by two former mayors and a mayor pro tem. Sorry, Steve Hatfield was mayor pro tem. They didn't file any financial disclosure reports. We all remember this, right? I've been banging this drum for a long time. And so the state of Texas, which is a violation of, by the way, of Texas state law, and so the state of Texas has fined this political action committee, or specifically fined Gary Moody $1,000 because Mr. Moody has not filed, has failed to file any financial disclosure statement from this election. And so when we look really close, there's his name. Well, I got an email from someone who basically said, "No, wait a minute, you've stated this, but when I look closely, that was updated March 21st of 2019. Well, what is it now, and why aren't you showing a more recent image of that?" And I think that's a fair criticism. So why don't I do that? Let's just go to that, and I'm going to do it right here online so that you can see that. There it is. Okay, and I'll give you a close-in look of this so that you can see for yourself that I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. If I can find, there we go. So there it is, and when I go down the list, I keep going to the wrong mouse. There we go. Let's see if we can find Moody. Tell me when to stop. There it is. Can you see it? Moody, Gary L., $1,000, Neighbors for McClendon Chisholm. Folks, this isn't, we're not just presenting conjecture. We're presenting evidence of fact that demonstrates that what is happening in our city is not as it appears. And what Mr. Moody is trying to do is trying to create some shiny objects for you. Hey, look over here, rather than really encourage you to look at facts for yourself. Mr. Moody has demonstrated by his actions that he has absolutely no regard for the rule of law, and there's a reason why they're protecting this. They don't want to disclose this information primarily because it is a major conflict of interest for a political action committee and a campaign to be working in concert with one another. You can look at the other shows to talk where I go ad nauseum into the specifics of this, and you can see for yourself. But the fact that Gary Moody is coming out and talking about campaign finance reports of all things, the level of hypocrisy that's involved in that should be dumbfounding to most people. How on earth? What kind of person would actually be throwing stones from such a glass house? First of all. But that is neither here nor there, and that is actually, to me, beside the point, because candidates who fund themselves, I don't know, there's been a few. Donald Trump is one of them. Mr. Moody is trying to make it seem like there's something wrong with that. Well, I think there's something very right about that. And you know what? It just reminded me that there is something else that I want to show, and that is a blog post that was written by David Day, candidate for city council, and I thought it was really, really telling about kind of the inside baseball about what's going on. Let me turn around again. All right, and so let me show you what he wrote this morning. He writes, "Someone isn't telling the truth." Well, I'm having trouble reading it, so I'm just going to turn around and read it like this. On the face of it, it would appear all the MC City Council candidates support the same concepts. If true, the voters can't lose. But when you read the campaign contribution forms of candidates, you begin to doubt the veracity of all the open space and transparency claims. Take transparency first. The current mayor has demonstrated repeatedly he does not favor true transparency. His style is dictatorial. He ended live broadcast. He limits who can communicate with citizens through city info sites, and he's allowed public business to be conducted in non-public venues with no public notification or public solicitation for involvement. Worse, his own campaign backers are the same old guard puppeteers, past mayors and past council members who excelled at self-serving backroom deals. 3 of the current candidates have taken cash donations from this same group, as well as the current mayor and past mayors Moody and Donegan. The name Steve Hatfield comes up on all of their donor list. Hatfield is former mayor pro tem and the guy who founded the GPAC Neighbors for McClendon Chisholm. Moody is the treasurer. Apparently, the State Ethics Commission is fining him $1,000 for failing to file proper disclosures. Excuse me, you got that wrong, David. For failing to file any financial disclosure statements. Get it right, David. Come on now. And if you weren't paying attention, he goes on, to local politics at the time, believe me, they ran a nasty smear campaign, even using outside political consultants, which they did not file any financial disclosure statement about, to produce slick mailers and go door to door masquerading as concerned citizens. That's right. They had people going door to door who did not live in McClendon Chisholm, who were not voters, who were not taxpayers, and they were knocking doors, encouraging you to vote for Keith Short, Herman Larkin, and Jim Bloom. He goes on. The same people are all with the closed and closed-minded Facebook page, Friends Uniting McClendon Chisholm, the FU McClendon Chisholm group, and a misleading name for an attack-oriented, divisive, and angry webpage. This small group of backers are clearly agenda-oriented. Is their agenda good for you? Do they really support open spaces? I think not. Here's why. And watch this. This is the key. All of their donor list contains names who benefit from or have supported in the past the building of high-density subdivisions. This is an empirical fact. That's not a scare tactic. That's just a fact. Sorry, David, I just stole your thunder. He goes on. You'll find builders, realtors, and large landowners. In addition, I ask you to consider the wisdom of an entire council and mayor, all supported by the same shadowy cabal that has tried to control this town for years. As your rep in place 1, I can promise you I will resist and reveal all efforts to bring in high density development to McClendon Chisholm. My candidacy is entirely self-funded. So while Gary Moody wants you to believe that there's something wrong with self-funding your campaign, David Day says, nay, nay. there's actually something very right about that. And isn't that true? When you're not bought and paid for, when you're not beholden to others, boy, isn't that a freeing thing? Isn't that a good way to know that someone who is not beholden to all these developers, as these other candidates are, how they are going to stand up for your rights and who are actually going to follow through on when they talk about the fact that they're going to protect your wide open spaces. David Day's campaign is basically, by the way, his campaign website is day, the number 4, openspaces.com. I think there's a hyphen between open and spaces, but maybe not. Either way, you'll find it if you Google that. Let's continue to see what Moody has to say. We also know that David Day has filed for bankruptcy. By the way, I did not know that. In fact, I looked in public record to find his bankruptcy. And you know what I find? I find a lot of David Day's, it's like the word Smith. Go and look it up. I find a lot of David Days all over the DFW area. And good luck, because I don't see one of them that has his address. But I'm looking for empirical evidence. Mr. Moody is not. So, Mr. Moody, why don't you show us the empirical evidence? I'm okay with that. Well, he goes on. David Day has filed for bankruptcy and is a registered Democrat. Okay, again, we go back to the same thing. Guess what, Mr. Moody? You are not a registered Republican. Do you know what Greg Abbott, our Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, United States Senator Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, State Senator Bob Hall, State Representative Justin Holland, and even our Congressman John Ratcliffe, do you know what they all have in common? None of them are registered as Republicans. Did you know that? None of them. Does that make them Democrats? Well, let me think. Seeing as how you can't register in the state of Texas as a Republican or Democrat, no. The only way you can determine whether or not someone is a Republican or Democrat is to identify, which is a matter of public record, which primary election the individual voted in. We have in Texas what's called an open primary state. You get to choose every primary. We don't have a primary in the city election. But every primary, when a primary comes up, you can change your party affiliation right when you walk up to the voting booth. You can tell, and they ask you, are you voting in the Republican or Democrat primary? That's what they ask you. And you can go to either one. So when Mr. Moody says, when he stipulates that Mr. Day is a registered Democrat, that is in fact not only a lie, it is slander. Because Mr. Day is in fact has voted Republican. In fact, Mr. Day has never voted in the Democrat primary. That's slander. That's actionable. By the way, this is the same slander that former mayor, or excuse me, our current mayor's treasurer posted in a post on Sunday. She said the exact same thing. And guess what? David Day had his attorney call her and say, you can't slander. You can't libel someone. It's written, so it's actually technically libel. You can't do that. It's actionable. If you make a statement like this and it's baseless, he can sue you. David Day, I hope you're listening. This is someone who needs to be waken up to the reality that truth should still matter. Since Mr. Moody has demonstrated by his actions in this post that morality is irrelevant to him, as morality is as to truth, this would be a good wake-up call. He writes, Scott Turnbull is a registered Democrat. Again, false, fallacious, baseless. Mr. Turnbull has never voted in a Democrat primary. Can you prove that he has? No, of course you can't. Balcom, watch this. Balcom voted to raise the PID in Sonoma. She lives in Sonoma Verde. And what are the facts behind this, by the way, Mr. Moody? What are the facts? Didn't you vote to increase the Sonoma Verde PID? I'm just curious. I'm asking. Here's another one. Increased Sales tax, increased sales tax. Why did she vote to increase sales tax? She didn't. She didn't. Because the taxpayers of McClendon Chisholm made that decision. Mr. Moody you have no morals. You have no moral compass. No moral compass. The taxpayers of McClendon Chisholm, they voted to increase the sales tax. But do you know what they didn't vote to increase? They didn't vote to increase their property taxes. When you led the city council to approve a city hall building that you said to a small group of people at a town hall meeting so that you could act like people were listening. When you told those people, I was one of them, that the cost would be $1.5 million, when it was actually $2.125 million, you did not give the citizens of McClendon Chisholm, the taxpayers, the right to vote on that city hall, did you? No, you did not. And by the way, I find it very interesting that you also created you used the kind of bond that's an emergency services type bond, rather than a regular bond, which would have forced you to put it before the taxpayers, before the voters. By using an emergency services bond, that's a bond that allows cities to basically increase the tax rate and build something in an emergency. So, for instance, when we had the tornadoes a few years ago, 3 years ago, the water tower in Rowlett was destroyed. Well, the city could have, and I don't know if they did, but they could have used this kind of bond to repair that water tower. Why? Because it's an emergency. But isn't it true, Mr. Moody, that you used an emergency services type of bond so that you could circumvent voters? You could go around taxpayers. You know what Adrienne Balcom did? She said, let's put this on the ballot. She said, let's put the sales tax on the ballot. And you know what? Voters voted to approve that. Adrienne Balcom didn't. Slander. No moral compass. He says, and increased our property tax rates. An absolute lie. An absolute lie. She did. In fact, she lowered our property tax rate. She voted to lower our property tax rate. Both years that she has been in office, Adrienne Balcom has voted to lower our property tax rate. Okay, so this is Gary Moody saying that David Day has filed for bankruptcy, but provides no evidence to demonstrate this. Registered Democrat, false, lie. Scott Turnbull's a registered Democrat, false, lie. Balcom voted to raise the PID in Sonoma Verde. Yeah, and didn't you as well? Increase sales tax, no, lie. Increase our property tax rates, no, lie. She was also paid by the Sonoma Verde developer, big development, for website work. No, lie. That's absolutely false. I would love for Mr. Moody to produce any evidence of fact. He can't. There is none. Mrs. Balcom has volunteered for her community. She was one of the first homeowners in the Sonoma Verde development. And she volunteered hours and hours and hours of her time to help make her neighborhood better. She created a newsletter that she never got paid for. Never. She may have been reimbursed for cost, but at no time ever was she compensated for her work. That's what you're trying to say here, and that is a lie. You have no moral compass. This is he who is not with me is against me. You're familiar with that in Matthew? I think it's in Matthew. And I should look that up. You know what? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to post it. He who is not with me is against me. This is evil. This is the epitome of evil. You know, yes.
Definition in King James Bible says a person who knowingly utters falsehood, one who declares to another a fact that he knows not to be true, and with an intention to deceive him, is by the definition a lie.
Yeah, are you listening, Gary Moody? Are you listening to the guy who has been your mentor? Even he's saying that you are a liar. Why? Because you presented false information that you knew was not true. Here he says, Turnbull has purchased signs for himself in Balcom and Day. Actually, no. What he did was Adrienne designed the signs because I asked. I said, what is this? Adrienne designed the signs, and Scott purchased them, and then because they could get a better rate. by buying them all at the same time. And then they pay them back. It's a part of their financial disclosure statements, by the way. As of March, they have received 0 donations. No, that's not true. I think Adrian's received $50. They've all said that they are funding their own campaigns, and the $50 was an unsolicited donation. But you think that's bad? Interesting. I wonder why. Isn't it true because you were in the back pocket of developers? Isn't it true, Mr. Moody? You're talking about the Sonoma Verde development just now. I just realized you talked about that she was paid by the Sonoma Verde developer. Were you not? Did you not get paid by the Sonoma Verde development as mayor of McClendon Chisholm? You're an insurance salesman, right? Did you not hold the insurance policy for Sonoma Verde development? Did you not? Oh, and by the way, did you ever file a conflict of interest statement establishing that, hey, I'm doing business with a developer who I'm going to be making decisions about, who I have influence over? Did you ever file a financial disclosure statement about that? No, you did not. He goes on, this is why they were willing to place the murder post card on your doors without the verbiage required by state law. Excuse me, is this what you're talking about? This is not a campaign flyer. This is my flyer. This is mine. I don't have to have verbiage on it. I'm a citizen. And if they put any on a door, that's not against the law because it is not campaigning. It's not their campaign. This is me. I'm telling citizens, hey, watch out for people like Gary Moody, because they are going to try and make David Day and Adrian Balkman, Scott Turnbull, they are going to try to make these people look like they are a knife-wielding man who is going up to a sleeping woman, cutting her open and pulling out her intestines with his hand. And law enforcement is doing nothing about it. That's what this is. To warn them that you're out there, that you are the true thief, that you are truly corrupt. And yes, that's corruption. Sorry, to me, that is a corrupt way of doing things. When you go after people, when you tell people things that are not true. But of course, you don't have a compass. As you've demonstrated by your actions. You've demonstrated that. They cannot fund themselves so that they were willing to break the law. This is not breaking the law. Again, a lie. Mr. Turnbull is lying. Which also shows Day and Turnbull are working with former unelected mayor, that would be me, which isn't on any deed in McClendon Chisholm. Oh, I just caught this. So, my wife's name is on our house. We paid for our house when we own our house outright. Okay, we paid cash for it, but when we were getting the money out, we didn't have that money, that cash on hand, and so we took what's called a bridge loan. And so because of that, and because I work for myself, our mortgage broker thought it would be better to just have her apply, and so she did. We didn't have any problems. So yeah, she's done that. We haven't signed the quitclaim deed. What does that matter? Okay, I'll go do the quitclaim deed, and will that make everything better? Of course not. You are searching for anything. You are desperate because you don't have facts on your side. You have no compass. What do they say? What does he keep saying? Empirical evidence. Show us. If you've got empirical evidence, well then, you know what empirical evidence is? It is an actual document. It's a video. It's an audio. It's something that you can show proof. Here it is. Empirical evidence shows that not true. Empirical evidence shows that their actions of increasing your property tax. No. Empirical evidence shows that Adrian Balkum, Scott Turnbull, me, Wayne, we reduced your property tax rate. Increasing the sales tax, no, you voted, citizens, you voted for that, and increasing the city budget by 25%. This from a guy who tried to increase our city tax rate our city budget by 333% to raise your tax rate from 9 cents to 32 cents. That's a 228% tax rate increase. Do you know the definition of hypocrisy, Mr. Moody? No, you don't, because you have no compass. Leaving nothing in reserves is a direct correlation. Nothing in reserves, really? Where's your empirical evidence? Everything that you are stating is empirically false. I get why David Day sent me that email. Where do these people get this? The answer is they have no compass. Leaving the reserves is a direct correlation as to why they are struggling with their own financials. Who's struggling with their financials? David Day's not. Scott Turnbull's not. Adrian Balcom isn't. And her husband, Jason. No, they're fine. What has our city and your family received from these tax and fee increases? Well, you've got a full-time fire department. A full-time fire department, 24/7. And you know what? It hasn't cost you one dime more. Why? Because we got a SAFER grant to push us over. And by the way, I'm still waiting to see what your solution is to try to get those who are in the unincorporated area to begin contributing to their own fire safety, since after all, more than half of all fire calls go outside of the city of McLennan Chisholm, and since they make up 2/3 of the fire district, and by the way, they contribute nothing to their fire safety. They are sucking on the tit of the McLennan Chisholm taxpayer. But you've still not answered that question. If they cannot manage their house, he says, don't let them manage our city's house. Good gracious, do you want to go back to Gary Moody? Really? I don't think so. There's another post. There is another post that I find just it's kind of what led to me focusing on the issue of morals today, and it's written by McLennan Chisholm's own Jezebel, and Jezebel is married to Scumbag. Why do we call him Scumbag? We call him Scumbag because when a man leaves his wife and child, abandons them for another woman, this woman, and moves to Sonoma Verde and then says, I'm not going to pay child support. Forget it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay child support. Just abandons that child. That's what you call a scumbag. That's what you call a scumbag. Because while those in the North, where the Kippets are from, they call it a deadbeat dad, and those from California, where Mr. Dahl's from, they call them a deadbeat dad. We here in Texas, what do we call them? We call them scumbags. A man is not a man who abandons his child, abandons his wife. Now, you got to understand, this really hits a nerve for me, because my wife, she and her mom were basically abandoned by her dad, and he went off and had another family and never paid a cent. I mean, just completely abandoned them. It was my wife's mom and her that had to make it. And I got to tell you, my mother-in-law is an extraordinary woman. She lives with us. She lives here in our home. Why? Because she's an extraordinary woman. She got educated. She got an undergraduate degree, then got a master's degree. My wife tells me stories of them traveling all over the United States, going to different universities and things so that her mom could get educated. And they lived a pretty subsistence life. They did not live high on the hog. They did not live in homes that we live in here in McLennan Chisholm. So when I hear about a scumbag who abandons his wife and child like that, that's the only name I have for him. By the way, I want to make one thing really clear, that this is not someone that cannot be redeemed. A scumbag can turn into a pretty good guy if he stands up and does what he says. Forgiveness is true for anyone, and I'll be the first to forgive someone like that. But when you have a guy like this, who this woman married, who is not just a scumbag, but he's also the creator of the FU McLennan Chisholm group, Facebook group, and the McLennan Chisholm Friends and Family group. This is a guy who's been kicked off of Nextdoor 3 times. Why? Because of his offensive rhetoric. His wife has two profiles on Nextdoor. And if you're in Sonoma Verde, you can verify this. One is with just her maiden name, and the other one uses her other name. And the reason I think that is because, well, as her husband keeps getting kicked off, he has to use her identity. What's interesting is Scumbag, he tries to tell people that I have multiple identities on Nextdoor, which I don't. I have one. Or multiple identities on Facebook or something. In fact, and I was going to show this one day, but I thought, leave the poor guy alone. There is some guy that sells suits or something like that, and he's saying, and the Scumbag is telling everybody, this is Robert Steinhagen. This is Robert Steinhagen. Obviously, it's not, because obviously he's been must have notified somebody because they've stopped that rhetoric. But I feel sorry for the guy because Scumbag just is bound and determined to prove that I have multiple accounts. I think the biggest question to me on this whole multiple account thing is, okay, if I have multiple accounts, well, then what am I saying on these other accounts? Am I doing something that is that's scurrilous of some kind? Because so far as I can tell, these other identities, so-called identities that I'm supposed to have, hasn't done anything. So, I mean, if you're going to accuse me of having multiple accounts, at least, I mean, I'm going to be smart enough to post some outrageous stuff. I don't have multiple accounts, folks. I have one Nextdoor account. I've got my Facebook. I've already told. I go back and look at my other shows. I've talked about this ad nauseum. So let's move on and let's learn from Jezebel. This is the woman who basically ruined a family, and she demonstrates by her actions, by her words, that she really lives up to this term. So let's look at what she wrote. She's in a conversation on one of these sites, and she says, "You mean govern like Jim Jones wannabe and his 5 followers, you being one?" She's talking to Jason Balcom. This is the husband of Adrian Balcom. By the way, Jason Balcom is a total stud, and the guy is he on a conservative scale, he almost out conservatives me. So I love the guy. She says, "You being one, how does it feel supporting attacks on citizens, mayors, fire?" Okay, she's talking. I'm the Jim Jones apparently. Okay, so you mean govern like Jim Jones wannabe and his 5 followers, you being one. So that would be, I guess, him, David Day, Adrian Balcom, and Scott Turnbull. That's 4. I'm trying to think of who the 5th one is. Someone will let me know. How does it feel supporting attacks on citizens? Haven't attacked citizens. I've brought to light the truth. Mayors, firefighters, police officers, veterans. Never once a police officer. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess Keith Short's a police officer. Okay. Veterans, the whole real estate industry, and pretty much everyone in MC. Not true. Absolutely not true. What flavor is that Kool-Aid you are drinking? Here's what Jason says. Wow, nice accusations. How about you address all the actual evidence that everything you just said is bullcrap? It's being presented in Mr. Steinhagen's videos. It's easy to sling mud without facts, and you're void of them. Amen. Amen, Jason. And this is how you should respond to these people. She says, Mr. Steinhagen, laughing out loud, is that what he has y'all call him? No, actually, they now call me Bunker Bob. We love that term, and we're even thinking about changing the name of this show to the Bunker Bob Show because it has such a good ring to it. So again, thank you, Mark Kippett, for that. That's awesome. Jason, your wife and Jim Jones wannabe are void of morals. Okay, void of morals. Here we go. What is her definition of morals? What is her definition of morality? This is a woman who basically destroys a family, steals a husband away from his wife because she's selfish. I'm sorry, but that's selfish. That's evil. Sorry, that's evil. That's what I would define as evil. And I have no morals. Showing a video of a citizen. Oh, okay. Showing a video of a citizen removing a political sign from her own front yard that she never approved, quote, as proof of a citizen stealing political signs, end quote, is, quote, bullcrap, end quote, and, quote, mudslinging, end quote. Do you personally know the woman in the video? I know for a fact. Okay, here's one thing that you can just bank on from now on. Whenever they write that something is a fact, you can know that it is a lie. How many of these posts have I been reading where they say this is a fact? Gary Moody just showed these are facts, and they're all lies, baseless. I know for a fact you do not. By the way, the sheriff was called but never went to her house. Okay, false, lie. The sheriff was called. The sheriff was not called. No, I actually went down to the sheriff's to the sheriff's department and filed a report. Met with a detective. The detective has investigated. The detective talked to Lori Moody. She also talked to the owner of Triple Creek, who, by the way, also removed the same signs from the same property. Now, the property in question that we're talking about here, and the signs that we're talking about, I played this 2 days ago. If you're not familiar with what's going on, I'm going to show you the video again because it's fun. It's a great laugh. But the wife of Gary Moody, Lori Moody, goes out one night about 11:30 in the evening and steals the yard signs from the property next to her, which is the lube oil and lube place on 205. So the Moody's, they live next to the oil and lube place. Then there's the oil and lube place, and then there's our sign. So the picture that you're going to see is looking down 205 away from the Moody's house. Okay. And so the detective has verified, yes, she did it. And this is a matter of public record. And I guess I'll need to post it. I'm glad to post it, and I'll call the sheriff and we'll get that sheriff report so that you can see for yourself. I mean, that's what's called empirical evidence. So the Jezebel here doesn't understand what empirical evidence means. So that's the case. So she goes out at 11:30 in the evening at night, and the thing says 10:30, but we show you that they hadn't done the daylight savings time on their security monitor. But this is the security monitor from the oil and lube place, and so here I'll let you watch it again. This is and enjoy. Let's say you've got. Sorry about that. You know what? That's okay. I'm gonna play it. Don't worry. Let me just go back because this is too good. But I want to give you the full screen. I don't want to be in the way of that. All right. So let's try it again. Are you ready? Here it comes. All right, how about that? Isn't that fun? That's I didn't have time to post that onto YouTube. I think it was yesterday or the day before when I said that I would, but I will do that today so that you can see it, because it's just too much fun, right? So here is what, so she says that the sheriff was called but never went to her house. Not true. Absolutely false. This woman, of course, she has really, sorry, I'm a little hot. She is a propagator of falsehoods and misinformation, as is Gary Moody. So then she goes on to say, those are facts. Again, when I told you, that's the buzzword. We know that when they say facts, we know that it's false. I know it must be embarrassing to have your wife run around town chasing after another man, but grow a backbone and don't believe everything your wife says. I guess I didn't catch that part. Jezebel is accusing. It appears that Jezebel is accusing Adrian Bauckham of adultery. That's called slander. That's called bearing false witness, because that's not true. Certainly not true with me. Who else? Who is she chasing around? Jezebel. You know, your husband's scumbag had made that exact assertion on a public social media site, and we've got the screenshot of it. You know, it may be time that we take action against this kind of person, because this is actual libel. This is actionable. What he wrote, what he posted the other, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, is libelous, is actionable. Do you have no moral compass? Obviously not. Look, I just want to say something to you, and I know you watch. You obviously watch this show, so I just have a message to you. I know you must feel awful. If you have a scintilla of morality inside of you, you must feel terrible for destroying a family the way you have. But you know, doing this is not going to make you feel better. This is awful. This is indefensible. This is evil. You're accusing me and others of having no moral standards. What do you call this? Shame on you. Shame on you. That's despicable. And so I say despicable, not deplorable, because I consider myself one of the deplorables that Hillary Clinton called out. I'm proud to be a deplorable because I'm a conservative. She thinks anyone who loves God and guns is deplorable. That's fine with me. But you're despicable, Jezebel. Your actions are despicable. Here's another post by another individual. Listen to this. Steinhagen was the worst mayor I have ever encountered. I'm just wondering how many mayors he's encountered. I should look it up, how long he's lived in McLennan-Chisholm. Something tells me I'm the only mayor he encountered. He did the exact opposite of his constituents is what he's saying. His constituents' wishes. No, I didn't. I did exactly everything. By the way, everything that I campaigned for, everything that was in this thing, I did. I followed through on everything in this survey that constituents said that they wanted. I did. Why did I lose the election? Because people like you told half-truths and outright lies that if were true, I wouldn't have voted for me either. You go on. I have no explanation for his motives and his actions. Can you explain yours, sir? He is void of morals. Again, what is your definition of morals? He started hating on the residents that lived out of town and still received fire protection from the MCBFD. No, truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. I get why you call that hating. It is an empirical, irrefutable, and incontrovertible fact that those who are in the unincorporated area contribute nothing to their fire safety. And yeah, as mayor, I thought that was wrong. I am tired of the citizens of McLennan-Chisholm footing the bill or I was tired as the mayor and as member of city council. One thing that you don't ever want to mention, which I find very selective is the fact that not only did I try to bring up solutions, but I even offered the MCVFD $10,000 of my own money. I'm a professional fundraiser, to create a fundraising campaign to help bring those who are in the unincorporated areas, help them to begin contributing voluntarily for their fire safety. I was putting the $10,000 up to create the program, to do mailers, those kinds of things. The cost of the fundraising. You don't want to talk about that, do you? Because I'm a man of action. You're a man of words. You're a man void of morals, based upon what I'm reading here. He was coveting the fact that they did not have to pay the same amount in taxes as the residents in McLennan Chisholm. Instead of trying to incorporate the areas if we annexed High Point Ranch, High Point Lake Estates, guess who has to pay for those roads? We would, because the county owns those roads. I've talked about this before. Do you realize what a burden on the tax? There's no city in the state of Texas that's going to annex those two developments. Those two developments are always going to be in the ETJ, unless, of course, you get someone. I don't know. I can't imagine anyone, even the most liberal of city councils. I cannot imagine they would ever go for that. The cost is too high to maintain those roads. That's ludicrous. Okay, he says, get rid of the. So basically, we couldn't get his work out. Incorporated areas, or work out a more equitable solution. He decided equitable solution. I proposed a fundraising campaign. The fire department said, no, we're too busy. The chief of the fire department said, we're too busy. A fire department that averaged less than one call per day. They're too busy to do a fundraising campaign. He decided to attempt to get rid of the MCVFD. No, the fire chief decided that if he had to do an audit, that they were not going to serve the people in McLennan Chisholm if we didn't pay without an audit. So basically, he says, if he couldn't get his way, no one was going to have fire protection. Again, you are a man without a compass. You're an infraction of a man for saying this. Through his actions, the city budget has blown up through the purchase of fire trucks and equipment, not to mention the use of an attorney that was called for every detail to make decisions. I've talked about all of this. The actions of city budget blown up. No, that's absolutely false. Completely and totally false. The budget did not blow up. The SAFER grant has protected us, but again, go back and it's like talking to the wall with these people. There is actually a city budget blown up. No, we did not blow up the budget at all. We had a balanced budget. Both years that I was in office, we had a balanced budget. We lowered the tax rate too, by the way. Purchase of fire trucks. We didn't purchase fire trucks. The purchase of fire trucks and all that was after I was out of office, but they were not purchases. They were leased. The fire trucks. Well, that was when I was in office. We started the process of leasing these trucks. So we didn't purchase them. That's a lie. And equipment, not to mention the use of an attorney that was called for every detail to make decisions. Yeah, we were in the middle of a lawsuit with a tower company that was threatening to just basically bankrupt our city. Yeah, we were going over a lot of the ordinances, because that never would have happened had an ordinance not been in place, a developer-friendly ordinance which allowed a tower company to put a tower wherever they want without having to get go through the city council or planning and zoning. They just went through the Board of Adjustment. That's all they had to do. This is their definition. This is the definition of morality to them: to lie, to absolutely lie. The attorney bill alone was around $180,000 for the year. I don't know that that's true. What I do know is true. We got a $130,000 settlement. $65,000 is what we paid in litigating that tower thing. $65,000. We got $130,000 in a settlement. So if this is true, if it's $180,000, well, then we've actually, with that settlement, we actually spent less on attorney fees than we did the previous years. So I'm not sure what you're talking about. Ridiculous. So this man destroys the budget through his childish actions. You're the child. And caused the price of our homes to drop. Really? Really? Show me some empirical evidence of that. I just got my. How many of you got your assessment from the Rockwell CAD? Did it go down or go up? Yours went up too. Mine went up $50,000. That's not going down, folks. And oh, by the way, I am going to be protesting that. It's ridiculous. The Rockwell CAD's out of control. Due to diminished fire protection. We don't have diminished fire protection. Actually, sir, you moron, which you are, because we now have not diminished fire protection. We have 24/7, 7 days a week fire protection. Guess what? That's not diminished. Steinhagen, he says, is void of morals and good character. Any candidate he endorses has no candidate to vote for. Any candidate that this moron votes for is no one to vote for. Don't you agree? Let's remember that a lie doesn't become truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by the majority. Look, believe what you want to believe. I don't care. Believe what you want to believe. I realize that most people, that's what they do anyway. But if you care about facts and truth, if morality is a standard that you hold to, real morality, then there's no question in your mind who you should be supporting in this election. Adrian Balcom, David Day, Scott Turnbull. These three are the moral candidates. These are the people who do not incite evil, who do not celebrate evil, who do not traffic in lies and deceit. Folks, when are you going to say when? This election is important. I want to let you know that I did make a mistake. The election judge is not from Heath. She's from Chisholm Ranch. Or excuse me, I think that's right, Chisholm Ranch, but is not a citizen of our city. But she and her husband are supporting the leftist candidates, and has no desire. If you can vote in Heath, or I think Fate, you can vote at any election location, any polling location in Rockwall County. So any of the city halls, including ours. But I would rather you not vote at our city hall because frankly, I don't trust them. Actions speak louder than words. And so I would encourage you to remember this fact that we need moral people running our elections, and we do not need to be we do not need to succumb to those who are trying to rob us of our election. So please vote, and we will see you tomorrow. I look forward to it. Thanks for being with me today. Have a great day, conservatives from McLennan Chisholm. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.